Howdy folks. Today we're going to talk about some interesting tools and tips that I use to build model railroading. In my club, I've been trying to show guys how to do different things, and I'm always amazed at people that have not used some of these tools before. And so I thought I'd make a video showing you some of my favorite tools that I can't get along without when I'm working on particularly HO scale, but on any scale, and particularly when working with electric connections and other hookups. The first thing I'd like to talk about is this tool that I wouldn't be without. It's a very simple electric screwdriver, and it is just something you cannot do without when you're especially doing electrical work and you're under the table, for example, and you can put the screwdriver in and use it to tighten and untighten the screws in a terminal strip, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. These drills are made by General, and I bought it on Amazon. I generally keep a spare one because I tend to, when I'm using the screwdriver, I tend to screw it all the way in, and when it gets tight, I tend to give it another nudge. You'll see here, okay, then I just go with that. And eventually, doing that, you'll strip the gears in here that make the thing work. So you'll find once you get used to the screwdriver that you won't want to do anything without it. Now it comes with a series of bits, different sizes. There's really three that you're going to use. You're going to use this General screwdriver blade, straight blade that's in here, and it fits in most of the connections that you'll be dealing with. It's the right width. However, there's certain types of circuit boards that have these connections on them, and this is just too big to fit into the holes. So there's another straight blade that it comes with a kit of bits, and this blade is just right for going into these smaller connectors on circuit boards, particularly Digitrax, but they're very easy to change. You just pull one out, put the other one in, and you're set to go. The other bit that you will use a lot is the small Phillips, and I guess there's numbers that go with these. I don't know what they are. I just call it the small Phillips, and it's good for a lot of the connections that you make. Particularly, I use number 4 3/4 inch screws for mounting terminal strips. They go nicely through the holes here, mounting all kinds of things, I find. And they have Phillips head on them, and they're great. The screwdriver is great for starting it, particularly if you're screwing into pine or any soft wood. You don't need to drill pilot holes. Now, you don't want to tighten the screws all the way down with this, so you'll need a handy Phillips screwdriver also. But the thing that's good about it is you can get the screw started without having to drill a pilot hole. And by using the electric energy in this electric screwdriver, I find that just saves phenomenal amounts of time. So these are the three connectors that you would want: the small, the larger flat, and the Phillips. And like I say, they all come in this handy little rubber holder so that you can keep them. I have several of these now, as I've managed to destroy a couple of the screwdrivers themselves, like I said, by stripping the gears. You'll also want to keep a supply of AAA batteries. This takes two. I happen to use these rechargeable ones from Amazon, although they don't seem to last as long as the regular like Duracell AAA batteries, but it takes two of them to make this run. And you'll find eventually, after you've been doing quite a bit of work, that you're going to need an extra set of these. All of these, almost everything I talk about here today is available on Amazon. And if you look for General electric battery powered screwdriver, I'm sure you'll come up with this. Like I said, I usually keep one as spare. I use one in my toolbox and have an extra one as a spare. So that's the electric screwdriver, and I would say that I can't do much without them, so I would certainly have them available. The next tool that I find to be indispensable is this handheld Dremel tool. Now you notice that it's got a wheel already attached to it, and if you're familiar with Dremel tools, you'll know that this is that snap kind of twist and turn thing that you can take this off of there real easily by pulling down on the barrel of the thing and just taking the wheel off. And I keep a supply of these wheels. This is really the only wheel that I use. So if I got that back on there correctly, it looks like I did. Now this is, I think it says right on here, now I've probably worn it off. It's a cutting tool, it says up there. And not only does it cut around here, but you can actually use the sides of this to do, not sanding, but filing off the edge of something if you need to do that. So I am going to advocate that instead of using what everybody calls track cutters to cut the track, what happens when you cut track on this, there's two ways to do it. If you do it like this, that's one way. If you do it like this, it's another way. Both ways are bad, because if you're doing it like this, what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze the flange at the bottom of the track together. Okay, great, cuts it in a hurry. But the problem is that now you've squeezed together the two sides of that flange, and when you go to put a track connector on there, it is not going to go on smoothly because you've distorted the nickel silver track. So I'll just cut the rest of this away so that it's not in our way. This is one of the things that track cutters are good for, is cutting the plastic ties. And I'll show you some more of that in a minute. But what you have to do now in order to get the track connector on there is you have to file down the flange on both sides so that the track connector will slide on there. Otherwise, you'll spend a lot of time and get a lot of cuts on your fingers trying to put those track connectors on there. So I suggest that instead of using what we always call track cutters, I would reserve these for cutting wire and plastic. They're very good for that. For example, one of the things that you can do with these is to snip off the little plastic nubs that hold the rail engaged before you reslip these ties under the blank spots that you're going to have where you have joined track. Now, so how do I cut track? I love the Dremel tool because what you're doing is you're actually cutting straight down with a clean cut. And if you move the wheel back and forth a little bit, it cuts better. But then you cut it all the way through. And when you're done, you don't have to file, because the cut, you've not distorted either the rail or the flange. And your rail joiners will fit cleanly over this because you've not distorted it. Now, if you happen to end up well, let me show you another thing first. This is the way I cut my, when I've cut a piece of flex track to put it together, first thing I do after I cut the piece of flex track is I snip off the last tie on there, and I save it for later, for putting back under here. Now you've got, at this point, you've got almost enough space to get your rail joiner on there without the joiner bumping up against the track. But to make sure that you have enough space, what I do then is cut out this piece connecting, and if you're just the right point, there'll be one on both sides. Now you haven't taken that tie off there, but you can slide it further to gain a little bit more room. But you have not disconnected the tie from the track, and you've got the little nubs holding the track in the proper gauge. And when you get it back together, you can slide this tie back a little bit further to help keep the tie engaged, keep the track engaged over the joint. And then later, you'll slide one of these ties underneath. I would cut off these pieces here, like thus and so that there's nothing impeding it. And then you can, after you take the nubs off of the top of it, because if you don't take the nubs off, what will happen is it'll push the track up and you'll have a high spot. But once you have put the track together, then you can slide this underneath the rail joiner, and you can use these pieces to fill in the spot where the rail joiner went. So I always save all those pieces of track. Okay, so much for cutting the track. Again, you don't, with this, you won't have to use the file because the track has been cleanly cut, and you'll find that your rail joiners go on very nicely. So track cutters, not used for cutting track. Dremel tool, yes. Now some of you, if you've gotten into some of my advanced videos where we're doing block detection, you'll know that we have to cut at least one side, and in a reverse loop both sides of the track, to prevent, in order to affect the block detection system. So the way I do it, rather than using those white insulated rail joiners that are sold by Atlas and others, I think they look ugly and they're hard to work with. I just don't like them. So I wait until I have got the track all laid down, and then I will take a spot of super glue, and the kind that I like to use is this Loctite super glue. It's a gel, and it works much better than the free-flowing stuff. And what I will do is put a dab of glue on each side just to lock the rail to the ties, so that, because you're going to cut in between. Then I cut where there is a connector beneath. Now you notice that when you're working with FlexTrack, on one side the connectors are all solid all the way along, and your track doesn't flex on that side. But on the flex side, the track is missing a joiner about every other spot. So if you're going to cut a gap, what I suggest doing is cutting the gap where there is still a joiner underneath. That will help hold the track engaged after you've cut it. Now, on this particular side, I've got the joiners going all the way through. So if this is the one I'm going to cut, I'll cut through, but not through the plastic. Just down through the rail until just above the plastic. And you can tell when it gets there, but don't cut the plastic. Cut the rail clear through. There. Now, what we've got is we've got a gap cut in the track, but we haven't cut the plastic underneath so that there's still a lot of structure holding your two rails engaged, and they won't move about, slide about, especially if you have super glued the tie on either side on the outside so the rail is fixed pretty well. And again, if you have to cut on the side that is the flexible side, make sure you cut not where it's already broken, but where there's still a rail joiner underneath. And these two ties will then tend to act to keep the rail engaged, but you still get the gap that you need for block detection, for reverse loops, and so forth. Okay, so that takes care of using the Dremel tool. I think you'll find that to be one of the best tools you'll ever buy. This is a relatively old one. I've had it for a number of years. I'm not sure they make it like this anymore. They make a similar one. I bought this, believe it or not, at Walmart many years ago for about $20. Best investment I ever made. The most recent investment I made is an extra battery for it. So I can always keep one battery charged up, because right when you're in the middle of doing a lot of work, I guarantee you this is going to run out of juice. And so if you have another one sitting on the shelf that's all charged up, you'll be in much better shape. They're well worth having the extra battery. Now, one other thing that the Dremel tool is excellent for is cutting these strips. Now, if you're not familiar with the various kinds of strips, there's two. This is called the European style terminal strip. And it is not, the black screw type that have to have spade lugs on the end of your wire in order to do a nice job of wiring. These allow you to have a screw that comes down and goes into the slot there with the screw tightening down to clamp it in place. You can put a number of different of wires into the same hole, so you're not stuck with just one wire. These are typically bought in a group of 12. Now this particular brand is the one I like. It's a little stiff. It's not real flexible, quite sturdy. I used to buy them from a place called All Electronics. Now I'm finding that the best place to buy them is, All Electronics is no longer in business, but there is a place that is run by the employees of that group, and it's called AR-etronics or R-tronics. I'm not sure how they pronounce it. I think it stands for Amateur Radio Etronics. It's not AR Electronics, it's ARETRONICS.com. And they sell these. They sell several types. This is the smallest. It's known as the 7 amp model. It's what you want for the kind of work that you're doing in model railroading. You don't want anything bigger than that. So now, they come in blocks of 12, but you don't want to waste a whole terminal strip like this if all you need is 2 on the end, or 4. So, once again, here's where the Dremel tool comes in. You can cut this just like this. And now you have a block of 4 and a block of 8. The nice thing about it is it's cut relatively clean. You can clean it up if you need to, but typically you don't. And there's plenty of screw holes in here to mount this, so you can still get 2 screws in there. That'll give you a terminal strip for connecting 4, which I use a lot of these. I find that to be very useful. Now, if you end up cutting an odd number, for example, and end up with just one of these connectors, hold on to that, because that's great for connecting the 2 ends of a wire, for example, like this. If you had a wire that you needed to connect together, you can use one of these to do that. Doesn't need to be mounted. All you need to do is screw it in on each side and you've connected your wire. So whatever you do, don't throw away any pieces of that terminal block. At any rate, so that's the uses that we have for the Dremel tool. Again, this and the electric screwdriver are two of my most used items around the workbench, and I'd be lost without them. So I hope that you'll find them as useful as I do. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is in many of the things that we're doing, we have to glue things down. For example, most people like to put a roadbed down. Now this is the stuff that comes in a roll from Woodland Scenics, and they come in a roll, but they also now come in about 30-inch or 36-inch, I can't remember which it is, strips, and they sell a box of them. And I happen to be using this. I use this on all my layout here, and I find it's cleaner to work with than the cork roadbed that most everybody's used to. But when you put this down, how are you going to put it down? Some people use white glue. One of the things that I tell my club members, I say, I don't want to ever see you using white glue for anything except mixing it with water to glue the ballast down. Do not glue this down with white glue. It cannot come up after that. So what I suggest you do is you use what is called clear silicone sealant or caulk. And the one that I like the best is this Gorilla, made by Gorilla. It's a waterproof caulk and seal, and you put it in a typical glue gun, and you apply it like that. And when you go to put it on, glue something down, you're just going to put a thin bead down. Now the nice thing about this stuff is that it dries relatively quickly. That will set in about, well, it'll be set so that you can leave it in about 5 minutes. It takes really a lot longer than that to set it up really well, but even in 5 minutes, it will be so that you can touch it and it won't come off. But the beauty of that silicone is it's very easy to remove something after you've put it down with the silicone. If you've ever gotten a credit card in the mail, they use something similar to this to glue the credit card to the piece of paper or card stock that comes with the credit card. And once you take the credit card off, you can peel this stuff off all at one time. And once this is dried, I can pick this up and it'll pull right off without breaking and not leave any residue on the piece of wood. Now, this piece that I have put here, I put it on this morning, so it's fairly dry. Notice I can't move this around at all, but it was put on this morning, so it hasn't completely dried. But you see how it forms kind of a film here that once it's fully dried, it'll pull up just like that stuff on the back of the credit card. You see this? And you pull it off and it doesn't leave any residue. So that's one of the nice pieces. Now, if it has been on there for a while, you may run into a problem where it'll be stuck on there pretty good. But the interesting thing is you can just slide a putty knife underneath and off it comes. And it won't destroy the bottom of this. You can pull this off and you won't take any of the cork or the rubber or anything with it. So this stuff to me is a godsend. And at our club, like I said, I forbid them to use any white glue for anything like even gluing this cork down right here on this portion of the layout. Even gluing buildings down, if you take a little dab of this stuff in each corner of a building and set it in place, it'll be perfect. And then you can always take the putty knife and just slide underneath and get it off free. It just is so nice because it doesn't do any damage. It doesn't have a residue that you can't get rid of. And you can always undo something, like I just pulled up this track bed if I find that I need it in a different place. Whereas if you use white glue, and particularly on cork roadbed, and you try to pull it up, I guarantee you there's going to be a mess. And so I just like the caulk, and anywhere that you're tempted to use white glue, except for ballast, I would really consider using this silicone caulk, and the Gorilla brand is the one that we have found the best. We used a different one for a while, and we found we had some trouble with it not setting up. So I tried the Gorilla, and I really liked it. See how nice and easy this stuff comes up, and it's very good for model railroading. So anyway, there's your advice regarding silicone caulk. Next thing I want to talk about is drills and drill bits. Now, I'm not particular to Black & Decker, but it's cheap. They're light. This one's very small. I have 2 of them. And I like the Black & Decker for a number of reasons, but the main one is that when the chuck is completely closed, you can get a very small drill in there. And the very small drill that I'm talking about is one of the numbered drill bits. You know, when you get down below 1/32, they don't talk in anything smaller than that. They use numbered, and I think there's a set of numbered bits that go from about 50 to 82. I could be wrong on the outside numbers on that, but they are numbered drill bits, and they're sold in most hardware stores. You've got to be careful because a lot of guys don't know that they're there, so you have to look hard. I think Stanley makes them. I think there's a number of places. You can also order them online. The drill bit that I like the most is this number 60, and I have about a dozen of them here. They break easy, especially if you happen to set your drill down wrong, or it falls, or it drops on the floor, or whatever. Even sometimes when you're drilling, it can break. But I like it for this reason. I'll tighten that. This is the reason I use this drill the most, is because when you're drilling, when you're laying track, and particularly when you're laying Atlas Flex Track, Atlas does not have any pre-drilled holes in their Flex Track. So when you go to lay your track and pin it down, you have to have a hole to put your nail in, and you want to get it centered, and you don't want to break the tie. And this small drill is just perfect. Don't get in a hurry, don't wind it, don't bend it, and you get a very nice hole that will easily take an Atlas track nail. And once you put that track nail in there, you can hardly see it. The other thing that I'll tell you is that when you go to put the track down and you've got that track nail sticking up, see, you can barely see it right here, even in this picture, but it's right here. I use a small hammer. This is, I don't know, it's a 7-ounce claw hammer, but it's smaller than a regular hammer, and it's perfect for putting on an edge and pounding that nail down to hold the track in place. And some of the guys at the club say that's my girl's hammer. Okay, great. But that's the one that I use. Now, if you want to take that back up again, I got another tool that's perfect for it. Remember those track cutters that I said don't cut track with? Well, that's perfect for gripping the head of the nail and pulling it right out like that. You can even use it again. So those are some of the things that I suggest you look into. But if you're going to buy a drill, make sure that the chuck will close far enough so that you can get one of those numbered drill bits into it. And then buy yourself several of the number 60 drill bits. And if you don't get the right number, I mean, there's not much difference in the size of those drill bits, but you want them to be small enough that you can get between the ties and not drill out the whole tie. So that's my suggestion with regard to drills and drill bits. You're going to need a whole bunch of drill bits, but that's the best. The other one that I use a lot of is 1/8 inch, and I'll show you in a minute what I'm going to do, what we use that for. So that, so far so good. The next thing I want to talk about is a soldering iron. Now the one that I like is this Weller. It's a 30-watt, nothing fancy about it. You don't want a lot of heat, and this Weller is perfect for that. Now, one of the things I like is it's got those LED lights in them, and when you're soldering, the LED lights tend to shine right where you're soldering, and it gives you a little bit more light to see exactly what's going on. Now, one of the things that you should also have is this scrubber. It's a stainless steel, I don't know, they must shave this very thin. They make it into these scrubbers. You can buy them in the grocery stores. You can buy them online from Amazon. I bought a pack of 12. And they're great for cleaning the soldering tip. And you want to keep your soldering tip relatively clean and relatively shiny, because if it has any burnt on solder, it will not transfer the heat very well to your soldering process. But if the tool is not properly tinned, it will also not transfer. Now I have here, except I have to open it, I have here something called tip tinner. Again, available on Amazon. Everything I'm talking about here is available on Amazon if you look hard enough. This tip tinner is really great stuff. If I can get this top off of here, there we go. This is what the tip tinner is for. With a hot soldering iron, you stick it in the tip tinner and roll it a little bit, and look at how it comes out nice and shiny. And you've got something that will now transfer the heat. And then I just clean it so that it's not a lot of excess solder on there. And you've got a tool right now that is very good for soldering. The solder will just melt right on the end of that tool, and it'll transfer heat. For example, I like to solder my my leads onto the track, and when you put it right down there, you'll be able to transfer the solder very easily. Here's one that I previously soldered. That's a feeder wire. You can also use it to solder joints. If you're putting joints on a curve, you probably want to solder the outside of them so that they don't kink. But this is the soldering tool that I like the best. And particularly, I like having the scrubbing tool with me. Some people like a wet sponge. I'm a little less inclined to use a wet sponge. I like this scrubber. Now I'm going to show you in a minute how to connect feeder wires, but the first thing I want to do is to talk a little bit more about the wire and a stripper that you need to cut the end of the wire. The wire that I find most useful for all of the model railroading that we do is this 20 AWG solid wire. It is not stranded. It's got a solid core. It's copper. Some manufacturers will tin the copper. Whichever way you get it is fine. But this is the best way to wire most everything that you have on the layout is with number 20 AWG. Many times it's called connecting wire or hookup wire, something like that. And there's all kinds of colors. I buy mine directly from Remington Industries. Now, Remington is also sold by Amazon, but I seem to get the best selection and a variety of colors and sizes. If you wanted something other than 20 AWG for some reason, like 18 or maybe 22, I don't know. And for example, on Amazon, I couldn't find this particular roll of 250-foot wire. But you're going to use so much black and red wire if you're building a major layout that I buy it in 250-foot spools. So this is the best kind of wire for most everything. My only other suggestion would be that when it comes to using bus wires for your DCC buses, I would suggest using something a little bigger, such as 16 gauge, and this is one time that I will suggest stranded. This is also known as zip wire. It can be called a lot of different things. This is available on Amazon, and I use this for my DC buses. You can use it for your DC bus, but I would suggest a different kind of wire for a DC bus, and that would be this red and white stranded, or red and white wire. It's a solid wire, but it's wound together, so you can differentiate a DC bus from a DCC bus. And I find that the red and white for DC is a little bit of a standard that will work, and you can buy that in big spool. Again, it's called hookup wire. I bought this on Amazon as well. It's called Twisted Pair. I couldn't think of the name of it there for a minute. So now once you start working with this various kinds of wire, you're going to need something to strip the wire. And this pair of wire strippers is probably very common. You'll see almost everybody has a pair. It's the kind that separate, but you have to get the wire in just the right hole. For example, if you tried to strip the wire in this large hole, it wouldn't strip. So you have to know what size hole to use. With this 20 AWG on this one, it's the last hole that works the best, and you can strip the wire off and you get a nice clean strip. Okay, that's fine. That's all I used for a long time. Somebody introduced me to this different kind of stripper. And this is one that does not have a specific size hole. And what you'll see is that when you stick the wire in here like this, it goes up against that stop, and that stop can be set any length that you want to strip the wire. But you just stick it in the jaws up against that stop and squeeze it, and bingo, you got it. You don't have to find the right size, and you can strip any kind of wire you want with it. You can strip this zip wire with it without resetting anything. For example, you just stick the wire in like that, and you've got it stripped. So these are readily available. Again, Amazon. I think I bought this pair from Amazon. You will see them in all different variety of prices. The most expensive one I saw somewhere around $130. Ridiculous. Don't pay that. I bought one, I think the first one I bought, I didn't know any better, and I bought one for $80. Not this one. It's another one that I have at our train club. I've seen them priced all the way from about $17 up to $130. Buy one that looks like it'll work and go to it. This upper adjustment here is for if you were stripping, for example, number 12 wire, you might need to adjust this. And it's good for very small wire, down to about AWG 30 or so. Unfortunately, it's not good for the kind of wire that comes out of your signals. These LED wires, they're just too small. You can't strip them with anything. And one of the things that I'll show you here that the soldering iron is good for is stripping this wire. I'm going to show you well, these little connectors on the end of here aren't any good, so I'm going to cut them off. This one, I don't need it. So here's a green lead, and I want to get the insulation off, the plastic insulation that's around that. Well, you can do it a number of different ways. I've seen people take a butane lighter and burn it. But here's my favorite way. Take your soldering iron, lay it on a piece of wood like this, and just pull it. And you now have a stripped wire. And you're not going to burn the wire. If you burn it with the butane, you might possibly burn the filament of the wire. This is not hot enough to do that at the speed that we did it. I mean, I just put it down there and pulled it. And now you've got a stripped end of this. And working with this kind of wire, I usually connect it to a heavier piece of wire like this and solder it so that I have a more sturdy wire to put into the connectors, terminal strips, etc., etc. So that's another use for your soldering iron and how to strip that. Okay, I want to show you real quick how I connect my feeder wires to the track and what I find to work the best. First thing I do is I take that 1/8 inch drill bit. You can use 16th, anywhere. You can go anything about that size, just so it's bigger than the wire that you're going to use. What I then do is I come down and I drill between the ties as close to the track as I can, and I go down through the cable, and that'll be the hole that I use for the feeder wire. We'll just take this little piece here and you feed it down, and you'll figure out what to do with the other end of it pretty quickly. But the point here is I was just going to show you how to solder on the feeder wire. Now I'll take the feeder wire and I take the width of this little pair of pliers and I square it just like that. So it's got a hook on the end. Then I'm going to take it down, and if you cut it close, you can pull this out just enough that it'll stay tight against the rail. Get it just where you want it. Yeah, I don't want it that close to the tie, because when we solder, that tie is gonna, if it gets hot, it's gonna melt. So now the trick is to take a good soldering iron, properly tinned as I showed earlier, and you want to make sure that you get good heat transfer. Then you're going to just put this, you want to do this as fast as you can, but do it well. You want the solder to melt. You don't want a cold solder joint. So you put it up against the rail and the wire at the same time. Put your solder in there, just enough, just like that. That's all it takes. And we haven't had enough heat on there to melt the ties or melt the little tabs that are holding the rail to the ties. And that's all there is to it, process. And now that it's cooled, your feeder wire is connected. You don't need any special joiners. And I guarantee you that if you come look at any of the club layout or any of my layout, and after it's ballasted, I'll defy you to find that feeder wire. I have to look really hard, and I know it's there. And that takes care of the whole process, and it's a nice sturdy connection. And then you've got your wire underneath that you can go and hook up where it needs to go. So that's how I make my feeder wires. Now there's one other use that I'd like to point out here, and this is where the old style of wire stripper is better. And that is if you take one of these terminal strips, and let's say you're going to make this into a DCC terminal strip, and you want to have 4 connectors for one side of the rail and 4 connectors for the other, so that you can put different feeder wires in there. Well, in order to do that, you need some type of jumper wire over here. And this is how I make my jumper wires. And this is where this tool is good for stripping. So I put the wire in here and I just strip it across until I've got that completely cleaned off. Now I've got a nice piece of wire that I can work with, and we can now make jumper cables for this, or jumper strips for it. So I just take it and bend it like this and like this. Now I've got a U on the end of that. Then you can cut the U right there. Notice I'm using my handy dandy track cutters that you should never use for cutting track. Now you've got a little jumper that you can just insert into this terminal strip. It's hard to do this when you're trying to look through the camera to do it. Okay, now I've got the terminals, I've got the little jumper in there, and if we take the screwdriver, the electric screwdriver that I showed you earlier, and we screw that in, like so, and then connect our DC bus to the black wire maybe for here and the red wire for here. You need to make another jumper for the other side, but you just saw how I did that with a piece of wire that I stripped, scrap wire, that's all it is. And you make that jump, and now you've got 4 different connections because you can still put more wires into the top. So this makes a good way to connect your wires, feeder wires, any other kind of wires that you're running. I use these all the time. I use them for hooking up the signals that I run these wires down to a terminal strip so that I don't have to monkey around with those wires. The last thing you want to do is break one of these real small wires in here because you can't fix it. There's nothing you can do except throw the signal away. So this is how I make the connectors or the jumpers. Okay, we've covered quite a few items today, little tips and so forth. At this point, I think we've pretty much exhausted the things that I wanted to tell you, so I'm going to consider this done and hope that you find something here that was useful. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll try to answer them if I can. Hope you'd enjoy it and have a great day.